Good morning. This is your Minnesota Bite Report, Crappie Chasers edition for February 10th, 2026. We are finding great fish on Medicine Lake in the Metro, Upper Red Lake, Elephant Lake north of Orr, the Big V, and we're finding good pods of fish around the DL area. Larry S. invited us to go fish with him out on Medicine Lake in the metro area, where we found great numbers of fish in the 9 to 11 inch range. We were fishing in deep water, had to chase pods of fish around. We were using Teardrop jigs with a small white twister tail. Now, we had to move very subtly or we would spook those fish, so you do need to be careful out in Medicine. There's quite a few crappies out there in the deep water, but they do spook very, very easily, so keep your eyes open. We also ended up catching a couple of bonus sunfish. We got some real nice sunnies out there in the 7 to 9 inch range, which were just fantastic. All of these fish went back. We did end up releasing all the fish that we found. Medicine Lake, when we were out there, seemed to be a nice subtle lake to fish. It was very lightly used. There was only a couple people fishing, and it was just a great place to go fish. I would suggest that you drill a few holes so you can jump holes. We drilled a few holes and then hopped holes just to see if we could follow the schools around. They moved around fairly quickly. You know, every 30, 45 minutes or so, the school would come through and we were able to manage a few fish, which was very nice. Very subtle bite, very subtle. All right, Upper Red Lake continues to be just a fantastic crappie fishery. Mike T was out there scouting for the last 3 days. Now, he's been off fishing remote, so he is chasing crappies. What he is saying is that he can use the rainbows that he's using for walleyes, so he can basically target both species at the same time. He also says that he did manage a couple crappies on crappie minnows and waxies, but he just didn't necessarily notice that they were queuing on those. They would take a small rainbow minnow as well. Mike was seeing fish in the 11 to 13 inch range, which, as all of us know, is just a great crappie. When you get up to Red Lake and see some of the size of these crappies, it's great to see them come out of the hole. Big slabs, big slab crappies. Mike mentioned that he did end up catching a couple of smaller ones, but he was catching smaller crappies on those wax worms and the crappie minnows. So he actually went back to using his walleye baits, rainbows, and was catching a little bit bigger fish doing that. So good luck out there on Red Lake. This is also a time to keep your eyes open. If you are fishing Red Lake remotely, Red Lake changes very quickly. So make sure that you have your eyes open and you are really aware of what's around you. It is a very dangerous lake. It is a very big lake, and you really need to watch it when you're going off-road and remote on Red Lake. All right, this week's Crappie Chasers Report is brought to you by Range Behavior and Easy Fish USA. Range Behavior is leading the way in providing free information for aspiring anglers who want to learn more about fishing in Minnesota. Check out Range Behavior on YouTube and Facebook, and remember, Range Behavior is where people are fishing for real. Now let's go get some more fish. Elephant Lake, north of Orr. Scout Doug P. is getting handfuls of 8 to 11 inch crappies as they move through the deep water off the points. Again, be careful on these small backwoods lakes. Elephant Lake is a little ways north of Orr. It's just an awesome small lake, but there's not many people on it. So you need to be prepared for whatever you're gonna run into when you're out on a northern Minnesota lake almost by yourself. The last time I was out there, I did not see another soul. So make sure you've got your wits about you and that you are ready for almost anything that can happen on these bodies of water that don't have a lot of people on them. Doug was popping lots of holes also and jumping holes. He said that the fish would come through about every 45 to 60 minutes, and he was able to get between 5 and 10 crappies fairly quickly, but he did have to wait them out. They were flowing around the big bowl. Again, you're gonna need your graph to find these crappies. It's really hard to crappie fish without a graph. You're kind of just shooting literally completely blind when you're fishing for crappies with no graph. You will need a graph, and you will need to jump around until you see them. You're gonna need to teach yourself the difference between the other fish and the crappies. Now, if you have a higher powered graph, you actually can see that it's a crappie over other fish. Just like you'll see other fish, say you're in a walleye hole and you're looking at tulibies, you're not looking at walleyes, you're looking at tulibies. I think that's why we have a lot of discrepancies with the live scope. People think they're in a pot of fish when really they're just in a, a pot of tulibies or something. All right, so when you get out on elephant, you have to watch yourself for the pressure ridges and the snow drifts. Very rarely is there a good road plowed on a lake like that. And that's just one of the lakes that we could talk about here, but elephant was doing well, and Doug was out there and he gave us a report. So we wanted to give a report on elephant, which is just a really cool lake to get out of. All right, the Big V. Joe K has been out fishing the deep holes on Vermilion. He's having some good success in the deep holes. The deep hole up into Wolf Bay, he ended up getting 3 11-inch crappies out there, which are some nice crappies. So he ended up getting a few out there. And he also ended up getting pod of nice crappies in the 7 to 11-inch range out of Wakemup Bay in the deep hole going up into the Partridge River. Now, keep in mind that when you pop a hole in a deep hole on Lake Vermilion, it could flood relatively quickly. Keep an eye on your snow machine or whatever else you went out there. You will start to notice. I have actually had it a few times where I am standing in a foot of slush water after about 20 minutes after I popped my holes. So you do need to keep that in mind. The other thing I want to mention is, if it's possible, try not to pop your holes in the snowmobile trail. That's not the place that we really want to flood, if at all possible. It's just bad etiquette. Try not to do it. All right, on to the DL area. The DL area has started to pick up. Our scout, Sam, was jumping around last week, and he fished Lake Melissa and then Big Cormorant. And on Lake Melissa, he said he was getting a bunch of good fish in the 8 to 11-inch range right off the drops. If you know Melissa, then you know this. There's really no roads on Melissa. You walk onto Melissa and there's a deep drop that goes from rather shallow water down into deep water. Now, once you learn the lake, you can move this ridge and you can start to locate the crappies along this ridge. Again, you will need your graph. Now, Sam said that erratic jigging was spooking the crappies and that they would not return for 45 minutes. So again, this is just a situation where you need to be careful with how you're jigging. A lot of times we get so excited, we see the pot of fish. You need to be very subtle when you're crappie fishing. Crappies are very spooky. He fished Big Cormorant also. So Sam was out on Melissa and Big Cormorant. Big Cormorant, he was finding most of his crappies on the weed lines in 9 to 12 feet. So he was fishing a weed line, and he said that the crappies would move through and then he would get a couple. He also said that the fishing picked up as the afternoon went along. So the fishing got better and better as the afternoon went along. Crappies do like the warmer weather. We are getting to the point here in northern Minnesota where we may hit 40, 45. Our weather reports coming in here are saying maybe in the next week or two, we might hit 40, 45. So this is crappie time. It's time to get out on the water. If you would like to be on the Minnesota Bite Report, send your pictures and advice for other Minnesota anglers. We will keep your location and information private upon your request. Let's get after some crappies. Let's go get them.